There we go. Now it's working.
Okay. I don't have the code because I went to
Okay, I'll read it out loud. It's 3886 8985.
Okay, I'm on a Chromebook and it's not giving me any place to enter it. Just showing me their advertisement. So can I type into the chat my answer, or is that a problem?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, we're just going to wait a couple minutes for more folks to join. We've had a large number of people sign up, and so we want to just give people a few minutes to make sure that everyone who wants to join the meeting tonight can join the meeting tonight. I hope you're enjoying the visual display of words. Keep typing ideas in. You don't have to type just one.
It cut me out after 2. Do you think I can go back in again?
Try that again. We have sustainable at the center. Okay, as you all are still typing in, I think we should get going with our meeting this evening. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight to the
Sorry, I was cleaning. I'll do it now.
To the first general plan workshop. We're really glad that everyone could join this evening. We have a very large number of folks who are signed up. We're at over 100 people right now who have joined, and we expect that number to go up potentially as high as 300. We're here tonight to talk about the general plan, which is the city's guiding document. We have a really full agenda this evening, so we're going to jump right in. But as we do, I am Matt Ramey with Ramey & Associates, and we are the lead consulting firm on the general plan. We have a whole host of staff and consultants and volunteers this evening, and we have a very full agenda. So we are going to move into, just for some background, some administrative stuff, and then into some background on the general plan. Again, if I could ask everyone to keep their microphones muted, since we do have so many people, that would be very helpful for everyone. And then if I could ask our facilitators to make sure microphones are muted. Okay, Lourdes, would you like to take over for a minute? Thank you, Lourdes. So we have simultaneous interpretation this evening, as Lourdes just said. We are going to just do a quick overview of some Zoom instructions. Everyone can join. There's 2 options for joining for audio. You can use your device's audio, your phone or your computer or your Chromebook, or you can use a cell phone to dial in. Again, if everyone can click the button, once you're joined, you should click the button that says mute to keep your video, your audio muted for now until you get into our small group discussion when everyone can unmute and we can have a conversation. Once you can keep your video on or off for right now. but when we get in the small groups, please have it on. If you have questions or comments, please use the chat feature. We will do our best to answer some questions throughout, if we can, either through the chat or for the whole group. And then if you also have ideas as we're going through the conversation and you want to share your ideas, please feel free to do that and put it in the chat. We are going to be saving the chat so that we know what everyone has said. And of course, we would ask that everyone be civil and complimentary of one another. If you have any technical issues, or when you're in your small groups, if you'd like to say something, we ask that you use the raise hand feature. Everyone's system may be a little bit different, but if you click on participants, you will see a list of participants, and then you can click raise hand to raise your hand. The purpose of our meeting tonight is to provide an overview of the general plan update process. This is our first workshop on the general plan. We have been doing work and having smaller meetings for about 9 months now, but we're at the point that we are bringing the whole community together to think about the vision for the city. What we want to do is to create a common ground starting point for all of us as we work on this process. So we are going to start with a brief overview of existing conditions, and then we're going to spend some time this evening reviewing the existing vision statement from the 2005 general plan. We're also going to brainstorm on a long-term vision and identify areas that are cherished and areas that could be improved over time. Our agenda tonight is a presentation for about 20 or 30 minutes. And then we are going to go into small groups for a breakout group discussion. We are going to have, I believe, 10 different breakout groups. One of those breakout groups is going to be in Spanish. After that, we're all going to come back together and hear from each other, from each of the groups, to hear what we talked about, what was discussed in those breakout groups. And then we are going to do a wrap up and next steps. We expect the workshop this evening is going to last approximately 2.5 hours. At 3 points in the process, we're going to have live polls. And our first live poll is going to happen right now. You will see, Aram, if you could launch the poll. You will see a poll show up on your screen, and you are able to answer these questions. So we have 3 questions that we want to start out with just to get us rolling. So the first is, have you attended any general plan events before? Either a general plan advisory committee meeting, a community council meeting on the general plan, or a city council meeting about the general plan. The next question is, how familiar are you with the existing general plan? And you have some options here ranging from I've never heard of it to I've read every word. As the numbers are coming in, it's not surprising that I've read every word has only one person, and that's probably a city staff member. And then the third is, how did you hear about the workshop? Community engagement and outreach is incredibly important, and we want to do as good a job as we can informing the community about the process. So understanding how people heard about this meeting is going to be really helpful for us. So we're just going to take a minute here and let folks vote. Please do fill out the responses. We have about 2/3 of everyone who has completed the survey. The number is going up, so we'll just give it another minute. Okay. We're going to end the poll here, and as we're ending, we're actually going to launch. We have a Spanish version of the poll too for the Spanish speakers. I'm going to quickly go through the results here. So just over half have never attended an event before, and just under half. The majority of folks, or the greatest number, are only somewhat familiar with the general plan, which is not a surprise. 4 of you have read every single word of the general plan. We will find out who you are later. And 12% have never heard of it. Welcome to a general plan process. In terms of how people heard about the event, the Plan Ventura email was the most, and it sounds like a lot of you heard it from an organization that you follow, or social media, which is great. Okay, Arm, do you want to launch the Spanish poll? And we'll see how many Spanish speakers we have here. We're not sure how many are in the room. We may not have a few this evening. Okay. We'll give it about 20 more seconds with this poll, and then we'll move on. Okay, Arm, let's end this one. And we only have 4 who took the poll. Half have attended events and half haven't. People are not as familiar with the general plan. And then heard about it from a friend, actually was pretty much split. Other heard about it from a friend, social media, and city bulletins. Okay, so let's, I know some of you have probably heard some of this before, those of you who have attended past events, but we're gonna, let me give an overview of what a general plan is. The general plan is a long-term policy document that guides the city's actions. It establishes a vision for the city over the next 25 to 30 years, and it's typically updated every 10 to 20 years. The existing general plan was last updated in 2005, and so it's right on time for updating the general plan. One of the great things about the general plan is that it allows the community to preserve and enhance community strengths, and then to address topics of concern. Apologies for the formatting here, but there are 8 required topics or elements of the general plan: land use, circulation, housing, noise, conservation, safety, open space, and environmental justice. As I mentioned, the existing general plan was last updated in 2005. This was based on a comprehensive vision statement for the city that was developed through a separate visioning process. We're going to review that vision statement later this evening in the small groups. The general plan is not organized according to the 8 elements or topics that was identified on the previous slide. Instead, it was organized by goals for the community that were developed during the process. So some of those goals are our natural community, our planned community, our educated community, and our involved community. General plans can be organized in any way that a city sees fit, so long as it meets the basic requirements of state law. Our project is really focusing on a general plan. However, there are multiple other projects that are going on concurrently, which will feed into the general plan process. So part of our work, our team's work on the general plan, is to prepare a local coastal program, which is a document that is required by the state to look at the areas in the coastal zone. And so we'll have a separate plan that will, a separate but integrated plan that will look at those topics. We're also preparing a climate action and resilience plan to look at how we can mitigate and adapt to greenhouse gas emissions, and then to a changing climate. There are also two other projects that are going on right now that are important to know about. One is that the city is just starting on an active transportation plan, and that plan focuses on pedestrian and bicycle transportation and networks throughout the city. So that information for the active transportation plan will feed into the general plan. The second is that the city is undertaking a historic context statement and historic survey to better understand the historic resources. So all of this general plan, the local coastal program, and the climate action plan will all be analyzed in an environmental impact report. So that's also part of the project itself. I had mentioned a list of topics previously, but as we have started our work on the project, we know that there are other topics that the city is interested in covering and the community is interested in covering. These include, so it's land use and urban design, housing is important, and homelessness, traffic and roadways, active transportation, economic development, public services, infrastructure, including broadband, parks, open space, natural resources, equity and health, climate change, sustainability, historic preservation, arts and culture, noise, and others. Clearly, this is a big project. This is has a very wide breadth of topics that we are covering. We also may add topics or combine topics from this list as we move throughout the process. One question that we always get asked is, why does the general plan matter? So why should the community care that we are preparing a general plan update? And why should they care that there is a general plan in the city? So the first is that the general plan process enables the community to come together to develop a shared vision for the future. And we really feel like this process of coming together is really critical so that you as a community can talk about your aspirations, your concerns, and ideas overall for the city, rather than as individual issues come up throughout the years. The second is it creates goals, policies, and programs that guide city decisions, including setting priorities for funding and long-term decision-making. It establishes the parameters for zoning, so the dimensional requirements of what's allowed to be built on every single parcel in the city. The framework for what is in zoning comes from the general plan, and the zoning code of the city must be consistent with the general plan. Finally, it acts as an umbrella that sets up detailed studies at smaller scales. Thinking of these detailed studies at smaller scales, since the last general plan was adopted, the city has prepared a series of specific plans and vision plans and community plans throughout the city. So this map shows the geographic locations that have more focused planning efforts that have been completed since the general plan was adopted. So the general plan is both a beginning and an end. It's a beginning in that once it is adopted, the real work of preparing and implementing the general plan begins. But it's also an ongoing effort. And so you can see here that all of these areas, there has been a significant amount of work by the city and by the community to prepare these plans. And it is our job as the city, as the consultant team, and as the community to stand on the shoulders of all of the work that's been done before. Implementation of the general plan may involve changes to some of these general plans, or it may involve changes to some of these specific plans and community plans, or it may involve creating new ones as time goes on. Our general plan update process involves 6 steps. Discovery, which is essentially looking at existing conditions and issues and opportunities. Visioning, which is really where we are right now, which is to develop a long-term vision and guiding principles. Creating alternatives for land use and transportation. Preparing policies and policy solutions to address issues and challenges for a range of topics, for all of the topics that I mentioned previously. Then preparing the draft plan, and then moving into review and adoption of the plan. We expect that the draft plan will be released in the fall of 2022, so approximately 18 months from now, 15 to 18 months from now, and that in the winter of 2023, so just under 2 years from now, the plan will be reviewed by the public and decision makers and then adopted by the City Council. Throughout all of this process will be a significant amount of community engagement, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. It's really important that we all are on the same page when it comes to existing conditions. So as we start the process, we need to understand where we are now, where we've been in the past, and that helps us figure out how we're going to move forward into the future. I want to take just a couple of minutes and talk about existing conditions. And in the next few weeks, there will be a series of detailed existing conditions reports that will be released, and you will be able to dive into much greater detail in those topics in the future. So first, just looking at the city overall, this map shows the entire area of the city. In red, the red outline is the city limits. That is the actual geographic area of the city. The black dotted line is the area that we call the sphere of influence. And that's the area that the city could grow into the future. The last geography, which is in yellow, and the yellow dotted line, is what is called the planning area. And that's the area where the city would like to have some influence over what happens in it, because what happens in that area influences what happens within the city. Overall, the city is about 32 square miles. It has a population of 106,000 people. There's almost 44,000 housing units in the city and about 51,000 jobs in the city. Over time, the city has grown since 2000, when the last general plan was done, although not very dramatically. So as you can see, in the year 2000, there were just over 100,000 people in the city. In 2005, it grew to 103,000, 2010, 106,000, 2015, 109,000. So it's about 3,000 people every 5 years. And then in the last 5 years, there has been a little bit of a dip in the population back down to 106,000 people. The green line that you see here is the population growth that has occurred in the Southern California Association of Governments region, which includes Los Angeles, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Orange counties. And so you can see that from 2000 to 2015, the rate of growth was actually in Ventura was actually very similar to the rate of growth in the SCAG region. Since 2000, there has been a change in the age of residents. Those in the 35 to 54 age bracket have declined approximately 9% as of those who are aged 5 to 19 years old. There have been increases in the 55 to 64 age bracket, the 65 to 84, and the 85 plus age bracket. What this means is that over the last 20 years, essentially since the last general plan was adopted, the city of Ventura has an aging population, and this helps us figure out the direction that we may want to go in the future, and also what some of the needs are of the current and changing population. Race ethnicity has also shifted over the last 20 years. This chart shows the percentage change. Above the middle line, the 0 is positive change, and below is negative change. So a loss in population percentage or a gain in population percentage. And the big numbers here are that the white Caucasian population in the city of Ventura, which is the orange color, has decreased by just over 20%. Conversely, the Hispanic Latino population, again, for the city of Ventura in orange, has increased by almost 20%, and the Asian population has increased slightly at 1.1%. The rest of the races, ethnicities have essentially held the same a steady amount and steady percentage of the whole. The other colors that you see here on the bar chart, the bluish color is California, and then the gray is Ventura County. And the city of Ventura has been relatively close to California's rate of decline in the white percentage of the white population, but has outpaced growth for the Hispanic Latino population. We also have looked at household income. Again, the same colors reflect here. The greenish color is California, gray is Ventura County, and then the orange is the city of Ventura. And this is essentially the economic profile of households within the city, the county, and the state. So in the city of Ventura, just over 20% of households make less than $35,000 a year. About 10% make $35,000 to $50,000, and then another 16% make less than $75,000 a year. This means that approximately 50% of the households in the city make less than $75,000 per year. The median income in the city is $78,000, and that is just above California's median income, but well below Ventura, the median income in Ventura County. This map shows the median household income geographically within the city. It's looking at the geographies here are US Census tracts, and the darker the color on the map, the lower the income. And so the darkish blue, the purpley color has household income ranging between $38,000 and $65,000 a year. The blue is $65,000 to $78,000, and the $78,000 is the median income. And so you can see the pattern of household incomes across the city. And this shows us that there are specific areas within the city that have lower incomes than other areas. Existing land use is really important to understand because a lot of the general plan focuses on what is allowed to be built in the city. So the proposed land uses and that feeds, as I mentioned earlier, into the update to the zoning code. As you can see from this map, residential, which is the single-family residential, which is the yellow color on the map, represents a very large percentage of the city. The red is commercial uses, commercial and retail. The blue is public, and the green is open space and parks. And so you can see, and the gray is industrial. So you can see the pattern across the city here, where you have the major corridors, you have the downtown, then you have the corridors of Main Street and East Thompson and Telephone, and then south of the 101 freeway is where you see the industrial areas and the commercial along the freeway. Overall, just under half of the city's land area of the 32 square miles is residential land. About 10% is commercial, about 6% is industrial, about 12% is public and institutional, and then about a fifth is agriculture and open space. There is approximately 5% of the land area in the city that is considered vacant. Parks and open spaces are absolutely critical to the identity of the city of Ventura, and we heard that a lot in our discussions with the community thus far. The city has 600 plus acres of public parks and 200 plus acres of beaches. You have a very good network of parks and open spaces compared to many other communities. There are about 5.4 acres of parks for every 1,000 residents in the city. And most of the residents live within a 15-minute walk of a public park. And you can see that on the map here, where the public parks and open spaces are in green, and the dark purple color represents a 5-minute walk. And then as you get lighter, it represents a longer walk to greater than 20 minutes. So the majority of the population has a park within a 15-minute or less walk. There are, however, some populous areas that have fewer total acres of parkland. You can see parts of East Ventura have less parkland than other areas of the city. One of the other major topics and concerns that we have with the general plan, and one of the changes since the last general plan, is the focus and the concern about climate change. This map shows the sea level rise risk area. And as you can see in the map, there are portions of the Pierpont area, the marina, and then by the fairgrounds and up the Ventura River that are going to be very susceptible to sea level rise by 2050. So this is a really important piece of information for us to consider in the general plan update process. In addition, as you all know, wildfire hazards are another topic of concern that maybe wasn't as much of a concern when the 2005 general plan was done. This map shows areas that are very high, high, and moderate fire severity zones according to the state. There are areas clearly on the northern side of the city that are right on the edge of the very high fire hazard zones, and some of those fire zones actually come into the city limits themselves. So again, this is another topic of concern that we need to think about for the general plan update process. We're now going to go and do our next live poll. So Aram, if you want to launch that poll, that would be great. Since we talked about demographics of the city, what we would like to do is to find out who is on this call and the demographics of folks who are on this call. So we have a couple of questions. One is, what is your age range? The second is, how long have you lived in Ventura? And then the third is what best describes your background or your race, ethnicity. And the fourth question is what best describes where you live. Just want to say that this information is important for us because we want to be able to track who is attending community events. It's important that we track that so that we know how our outreach is doing and whether we are engaging a diverse cross-section of the community. So we're gonna, we have about 125 people who are online now. And so we are going to have we're going to do this, and then we're going to do the Spanish version in just a second. Okay, let's give one more minute. Okay, Lauren, let's go ahead and, oh wait, we still have a few more people coming in. All right, we have 82% of folks who are on the call have voted. So here's the results. Almost half are in the 45 to 64 age range. We have about 10% in the 25 to 34 age range. So actually about 75% are 45 and older. Most of you, a lot of you, 40% have lived in the city for 30 plus years. 10% have not lived in Ventura, and then about 15% has been 5 years or less. The majority, 70%, are white, non-Hispanic, but there are also 13% who are Hispanic, Latinx, and then 10% who are 2 or more races or ethnicities. And if you see here on the results, there's actually a pretty good representation from across the city. East Ventura has the most at 22%, Midtown 17%, and West Side 16%. But there is still a good number across the diversity of geographies in the city. Aram, do you want to do the Spanish poll at this point. And as we're doing this, I'd like to ask the Spanish speakers who would like to be in a Spanish speaking only group. We're going to do breakout rooms in about 20 minutes. And so you all are going to be in separate, we're going to divide into 10 different rooms, and you all are each going to be in a room, and we want to know how many people and who we should put in the Spanish speaking room. So if you can either put yes in the chat or raise your hand, then ARM can figure out how we divide up the groups. Okay, so I am not seeing anyone who is taking the Spanish poll at this point. Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and close. It looks like only one of our Spanish speakers took this poll. They're 35 to 44, and they live on the west side. Okay, great. And again, if you could, if you want to be in a Spanish speaking group, if you could say yes in the chat feature or raise your hand, then ARM will take your name down and make sure that you go into that group. Okay. The last piece of background information I wanted to provide this evening is on community engagement. As I mentioned, throughout the entire general plan update process, there's going to be a significant amount of community engagement throughout. So we have a general plan advisory committee, which has over 20 members that were selected by the City Council who are going to help guide the process. We're going to have a series of public workshops, this being one of them. There will be educational forums, which are starting next month on a variety of topics, including land use, transportation, public health, historic resources, and arts and culture, and housing. We are going to have meetings with each of the community councils. We have already gone out to the community councils once last fall, and we're going to continue to do that, including coming up in the next few months. We're going to meet with community groups. We're going to have online surveys. We've already had one online survey, so we're going to have more of those coming up. When it's safe to do so, we're going to have pop-up workshops where we're going to go out into the community and try and reach people who may not want to spend an evening like we are all doing this evening. We're going to go and have meetings with the City Council and the Planning Commission, and then other boards and commissions. And we've started our rounds with boards and commissions already. And as you can see here in the graphic on the right, we have the phases of work on the left side, visioning, alternatives, policy development. And then at each of these phases, we have identified the type of engagement activity that we are going to be doing. As I mentioned, to date, we have already conducted quite a bit of engagement. We've done 20 one-on-one interviews with different members of the community. We've met with each of the community councils. We've had 3 general plan advisory committee meetings. We've had an online issues and opportunities survey. There's a project website, which is planventura.com. We have an extensive outreach database, and we have a social media campaign led by the city's comms team. The online survey was probably the biggest engagement event that we had done thus far. And this was open from November 10th to January 15th. There were 16 questions in the survey that focused on the quality of life, including community assets, issues and threats, and opportunities. There was very strong participation for this survey, almost 2,400 responses in the survey, and we got great geographic representation. The millennials and Hispanic Latinx population was underrepresented, and this tells us that there is more that we need to do to reach out to these groups. The survey results, I'm going to go through just a few of them, but one of the questions we asked was, how satisfied are you with the quality of life in the city? And about 55% were very satisfied or extremely satisfied, and very few, less than 10%, were identified as very unsatisfied or extremely unsatisfied. These are really high numbers. We do surveys like this all over, and these are very high numbers of folks who are very satisfied with the quality of life in the city. That's really good. We also asked the question about, over the last 10 years, has the quality of life changed? Or if you haven't been in the city for 10 years, how has the quality of life changed since you have moved to the city? And here we have people who have answered, more than half have answered some level of decline. Almost 60% have said that the quality of life somewhat declined, generally declined, or declined dramatically. We don't know the cause of this. Again, this is something that is relatively common in these surveys, but we also have to realize that when the survey was out, we had been in a pandemic for about 9 months, and people were getting a little bit tired of being in the pandemic. And so this could certainly have some impact on the survey. In the survey, we asked, what is unique and special about Ventura that you don't want to change? And this is a very important question for the general plan, because we really want to make sure that we are not doing anything in the general plan that is going to impact what is unique and special about the community. So we asked everyone to pick up from this list, we asked everyone to pick their top 4 answers. And the top vote getter was access to nature, to the mountains and the beaches. And more than 80% of people identified this as one of the top 4 things about Ventura that they don't want to change. Others, the 2 others that received a lot of votes, were the charming and walkable downtown, and then the small town feel. Interestingly, arts and culture, the high quality of life, and unique neighborhoods received some of the fewest numbers of votes. We then asked the question about what issues and challenges need to be addressed to ensure a high quality of life for all. We had more choices here, and we asked people to rank their top 5 priorities. There was a little bit more diversity in terms of the responses. There was a little bit more spread compared to what people loved about the community. The ones with the top number of votes were preserving the small town character and sense of community, improving the city's infrastructure, increasing the supply of affordable housing for people of all ages and income levels, and then revitalizing underperforming retail corridors and shopping areas. Some of the ones with the least number of votes were preparing for sea level rise, diversifying the economy, expanding the number, diversity, and quality of parks, and then increasing transit service around Ventura into other cities. So that's the data side of it, the numeric data side of it. But in the survey, we had open-ended questions where we asked for people's written responses. We had one-on-one meetings with members of the community. We've met with the GPAC, and then we met with all of the community councils and essentially asked some of the same questions. What are the assets? What do you love about the community? And then what are some of the challenges? And what we heard both parallels, but also differs a little bit from the survey itself. So for the assets, we keep hearing that the unparalleled access to natural areas is really one of the main reasons that people live in the city and for what people love about the city. A lot of people mentioned the small town vibe that's friendly, unpretentious. It's different than your neighbors. You're different than Santa Barbara. You're different than Oxnard and Camarillo. So you have a unique character. You have a unique identity in the community. There are charming neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods vary across the city. It's an idyllic coastal location. There is a walkable downtown. You have a perfect distance to urban destinations. Santa Barbara and Los Angeles were mentioned a lot. And then there's strong community support for open space and agricultural preservation. However, there are also challenges and threats to the community. As one GPAC member said, the city of Ventura is almost perfect. And so some of the issues that came up were affordable housing shortage and the cost of housing, the tension between growth and community character, the infrastructure strains from new development, traffic congestion and poor transit service, high cost of living, declining middle-aged population, excess retail, so there's too much retail space in the city, and then the increasing threat of climate change and other natural disasters. It's important in the general plan process that we look at these issues and threats because these could have an impact on the quality of life and the other aspects of the community that people love. People also identified a number of opportunities or changes that they thought would help to address the issues or to make the city of Ventura even better. These include building a diversity of housing types, focusing growth along the commercial corridors and not as much in the neighborhoods, improving infrastructure and creating complete neighborhoods so that everyone can walk to different retail and neighborhood meeting places, expanding bicycle infrastructure and improving bike safety, improving transit, expanding slow streets that have been developed during the pandemic, addressing homelessness, improving access to parks and bridging the digital divide, expanding and diversifying the local economy, and then of course, dealing with climate change in a positive way. Okay, so those were just some of the things that we heard. Aram, if I could ask you to please put up the word cloud again. We can go over what you all have said at since the very beginning of the workshop to see what your ideas were for how the city, what the city would be like in 2045. Aram, I'm gonna have you go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is a cool little activity, as you saw, where you all would individually type in your comments, and so we can see some of the key themes that are coming through from what you think the city would be like in 2045. Sustainable, green, diverse, friendly, inclusive, beautiful, family-friendly, eclectic, clean, vibrant. These are some of the things that came up a lot from the responses that you put in. All right, so now with that, we're going to shift to going into our breakout groups in just a minute, where you all get to share your ideas about the city. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time and just tell you about what we're going to be doing in the breakout groups. So first, it's going to take a couple of minutes at the end of this to get everyone into the groups. And then you'll have about an hour in the breakout groups, a little over an hour. And what we would like you to do when you get in the groups is, if the group is small enough, if there's 20 people or less, people can do introductions. We need you to look to identify a volunteer to report back to the larger group, and then we want you to review the interactive tool. The group discussion is actually going to focus on 3 separate topics. The first is a review of the vision statement from the 2005 general plan. What we'd like to know from you is this vision statement still valid? Does it still feel like this speaks to you as the vision for the city? And if not, what needs to change and what needs to be added? So you'll spend about 20 minutes on that. Each facilitator is going to ask for a volunteer or a couple of volunteers to read through the vision statement so everyone can hear it, and then you'll have a discussion about that. And your comments will be recorded on an interactive website that we will give you all the link to in just a minute. The second exercise is what we call the magic genie. And here we ask you to imagine that a magic genie gives you 3 wishes to implement your vision for the city. What would they be? And it's really important here that we ask you all to think really big about what you think your vision for the city is and what wishes you have for the city. So the example I have given in the past is that someone might come up with something that is cap the freeway and build a park. So that's a big picture thing, and you shouldn't think about constraints for the most part. Just think about what you want to achieve. For example, you might want to end homelessness. That might be something. If you have more than 3 wishes, we are not going to turn you down. Pretend that your 3rd wish is that you want 3 more wishes, and then you can add as many as you would like. Again, we're going to allow you to, we're going to have a group discussion around this, and we're also going to allow you to add your own ideas directly into the interactive software. The 3rd activity is about places and the different places in the city. The 2005 general plan used this term of places because the city is not monolithic. There is a variety of different places throughout the city, and some of those areas we know from talking to you all, you love. The downtown has come up many times as something that you love. The pier, the open space and the parks and the beaches. But there are also some areas of the city that need some love, that may need some improvement. And so what we would like you to do is to identify those areas about what are the places that you love and what are the places that need some love. And we have a map, that interactive map that you can put your comments down on, and the note taker and facilitator can do that. We are then going to ask you to spend 5 or 10 minutes figuring out what you want to say back to the group, to the large group. Again, we're all going to come back together at the end, and you all are going to, each group is going to share what you came up with for ideas. You'll have 1 to 2 minutes per group to give us your ideas. So think about that, so you'll have some time at the end to come up with what those ideas are. The breakout exercises, there's a software, a web-based software called Conveo, and this is the main page that you will get when you will get a link once you're in the small group. And you're able to click on these different activities to show, to be able to then dive into what your comments might be. The note taker will walk you through what you need to do here. Essentially, we want you to spend 20 minutes on each. You have the option to work individually or as a large group, and we want you to share your ideas, as many ideas as you can, because the more information we get, the better. For the report back, what we would like to hear is what are the main takeaways from the vision statement? So 2 to 3 things that you think your group thinks are the main takeaways. They could be, we all loved it and we don't want it to change. They could be, we all hated it and feel like it doesn't represent who we are now. So what are those main takeaways? The second is magic for the Magic Genie. What are the themes or wishes that were the most popular? So for example, it may be that a lot of people have ideas about parks and open space, although those ideas are different. So I would say that a theme is improving parks and open space in the city. And then the third with places is what are the places that were mentioned most frequently in your group? Okay, with that, Aram is going to go ahead and put people into groups. If for some reason something happens, please use the chat feature and ask your question, and we will do our best to make sure you are put in the appropriate group. And then we'll see you all back here in about a little over an hour so that we can share our the ideas from the small group discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and then Aram will put you into groups. You will see a message, you will enter a group, and if you need to, you can exit back out to the main room, and Aram will be there to help you.
Line and sea level rise, because those will be pressing problems for us moving forward. Themes or wishes from our Magic Genie. We would love to end homelessness, and we kind of built on that. I mean, if the Genie can do it, great. But if not, a step we could take is to offer more holistic services to our unsheltered community, including some mental health care, better support for finding employment and things like that. A theme across our Magic Genie wishes was greening and beautifying the city, especially an emphasis on our public spaces. And we really broadened that scope there to include things like sidewalks and streets, really rethinking how the city presents itself. And then we got a little creative. We talked about some potential land use changes, like maybe repurposing the 90 acres of the Santa Buenaventura golf course and the 50 acres of the fairgrounds, maybe even swapping those, or just kind of revitalizing those areas using the existing land that we have and working to make the fairgrounds a more vibrant space for our community. I think potentially when we came to places, it made me think that many people in our group live in Midtown, because Midtown was definitely the at the forefront of our conversations. We had a lot of conversations around the corridors there, widening the sidewalks. We also discussed the hospital and how to improve that space, dealing with some of the dilapidation that's in the area and making the hospital park more accessible. And then we also discussed the oceanfront, the coastline really from the river to the harbor, improving the aesthetics basically of the estuary, which I just learned exists, and just helping our coastline along in general. I think that, Simran, did I miss anything?
No, I think that covered it. The only thing I'll add is that we also talked about improving access to open space resources and connectivity to the open space resources within the city.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. The next group is Susan's group number 3.
Yes, so we volunteered Rob Corley, our group did, to do the presentation. And then Sabrina has her screen sharing there to help him along. So Rob. You're muted, Rob.
Oh boy, sorry
There we
about
go.
that. Still getting used to the Zoom world here. The main takeaways from the vision statement, in the revised version, as it says right here, we need to really focus on water for the city of Ventura. It's a main issue, and without adequate water, you can dream all you want, but you won't get where you want to go. We need more diversity in our housing options. I think that was a theme across the discussion, and some kind of support and assistance for first-time buyers. With the prices we have in this town, is just a wall that most young families cannot climb, and they move somewhere else, or they leave the state or something. It's something as a society we really need to deal with. Future of transportation in Ventura, we all know it's going to change, but it's a diverse city. Some people will use their cars forever. Others are trying to shift to bikes and walking and other forms of transportation. We need to develop the infrastructure and the connectivity to the rest of the state. We have a train station in town that is underutilized. We really don't have good public transit in this town. And with an aging population and with continued gas prices and everything else, it's something we really need to look into in the next generation of the general plan. And finally, equity in all these issues. We can't deal with one sector and at the expense of others. Other themes here that were not really talked about but are important, desalinate. And this is really the wishes part. If we had a desalinization plant, we wouldn't have as many water problems. We have an ocean out there, and that increased use of gray water for irrigation, for developing a fire break around the city. Another one is improving the walkability of downtown, possibly covering the freeway, possibly not. It's a huge challenge, but it is possible and something we ought to investigate. The bike trails are wonderful and they can be expanded. Also, the closure of Main Street. It has changed downtown. It's a destination instead of a place that you drive through to get to the one place you want to go. Now you get out of your car and you visit many places. Another request that came up repeatedly was we have all these overhead utilities cluttering our visibility. We have hillside views, we have ocean views, and we got wires and phone poles in the way everywhere you look. So as a community, that needs to be on our to-do list. Where do people live in town? It was a huge list. This is just a bit of it. Downtown, the parks, the harbor, the hills, the beaches, everywhere you go. Everybody's got a fan club. What needs some help around here? The trails, we need to do a better job of connecting some of the trail systems. We also have some stores that have closed, and we just have a empty building with an empty parking lot at a prime location in our town. We need to affirmatively, as a city, reactivate those spaces and get somebody back in them and make our city look like the great place it is. The other thing that came out in conversation was just how few grocery stores and shopping opportunities there are on the East End. Half our population is on that side of town, not half of the stores. And so it's a battle for people who live out there. It causes extra miles driven. And it's really balancing the services in East Ventura, West Ventura, Central Ventura, making sure everybody has access easily to the services they need. So with that, I'll hand it back and thank you. And Susan, thank you for moderating. You did a great job.
Hey, thank you all. So I just want to make sure we do a time check here. It's 8:20. If the groups could spend maybe a minute and a half or 2 minutes at most talking through the ideas, just the highlights. We have all of the comments, then that would be, we will end closer to on time. The fourth group is Netta's group.
Thanks, Matt. We have Elizabeth who's reporting back from our group.
Hi, everyone. So a lot of you guys are touching on the same things that we touched on as themes. Something from the general plan that really stood out to us was the sustainability portion. And I forget who said it, but they brought up a really good point that that our growth has to be sustainable, and slow versus sustainable don't always correlate. What we're building we have to think about the consequences and the impact of the people that we're bringing in, and what we're building essentially. That is it equitable? Can we have transportation? Do we have the connectivity? Transportation was a big theme for us as well, for both the public and pedestrians, for bikes and things of that nature. I'm just gonna kind of connect to save on time some of our genie dreams with a little bit of the things we loved and could use some TLC. A big thing for us was access to open spaces. The things people loved were the beach, the river trails, and we kind of expanded on that, the things that we would like to see, maybe a green belt connecting to the beach for downtown, the river opening up for access to recreation, a connecting trail for the trails, and green belts and barrancas being fixed up for nature access in those areas. Some places that needed some love, I think a lot of people have said this, but also the mall, some other empty establishments that could be repurposed or serve a better purpose within the community. And then looking towards the homeless thing, just trying to find ways to treat all humans with humanity and love, while still, meeting everyone's needs and growing as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done in a short period of time. Good job, Elizabeth. Okay, group number 5, which I believe is Jamie's group.
Okay, this is Scott. I'm going to try and share my screen. There we go. Main takeaways from the vision statement: need inclusive, affordable housing in a sustainable economy for all socioeconomic groups. So a big dream vision there. Number 2, need to disperse attractions across the city. A lot of the attractions of Ventura are on downtown and west side. The group felt it should be more equitably dispersed from the east side all the way to the avenue. It's all concentrated west side downtown right now. Another vision: want to live and work locally. So as was mentioned in previous comments, the ability to have everything we need and want right here in the city itself. For the Magic Genie portion of the discussion, bicycle paths, class 1 bicycle paths, better and safer bike connectivity throughout the city, and even connectivity to points outside the city was a big wish of ours. Number 2, to take the environment and climate into consideration in building plans. So have a well thought out overall plan for different parts of the city, which take environment and climate into account. Another wish was a community center as an attraction for the city. And on top of that, have it built by local labor. So a locally built local community center as an attraction for the city. Places mentioned most frequently that we love and need love, not too dissimilar from some of the other groups. again, downtown, the coastal area and downtown doing real well. It's the East End and the Avenue that need some love to be built up to become equals to the more desirable or the more loved parts of the city. One thing that our group loved was the open spaces, and we need to ensure that we protect those going forward. So that's a big plus for the city. And finally, some more places that need love. Pacific View Mall, our thoughts were either to blow it up completely, maybe and start over, or just take the roof off and make it an open air mall, something like that. And also improvement in our city gateways and corridors. Right now, both from the east side and the west side, the entrances to our cities are, they leave a lot to be desired. And for instance, the Midtown corridor also could use a little love. So that's a quick recap from group number 5. Thank you to Jamie for facilitating our group.
Okay, thank you.
Scott.
Thanks, Scott. All right, next is Jean's group.
All right. So in my group, we have Sandy, who's going to report back to the larger group.
Hello, everybody. What I'm hearing from the group so far, I think we also talked about in our groups, and it reflects our comments, I think, reflect the others. I only have a few things on the notes that I was provided, so I will keep this quick. In looking at the vision, the general thought was that it was an excellent document. It was needed some changes, primarily in the area of the environment, particularly looking at the issues of climate change, which were certainly not something that was being discussed when the vision process took place. And then also along the lines of disadvantaged communities and environmental justice, which is an aspect of environmental review now that I think has become more important to address, certainly in terms of planning documents that need to be crafted these days. In terms of themes or wishes, one of the wishes and end themes and things we talked a lot about was affordability. We've heard that from others, and finding ways to house our workforce and our children who can't afford to live here. The issue of aging in place, the demographics show that we're aging as a community. I think that's true as a society, and finding creative ways to allow our aging population to stay where they are and age in place. In terms of the things that we would like to see, a lot of those were echoed. I think I'll just say connecting the downtown to the beach came up. That we certainly talked about covering portions of the freeway, but I think that a lot of that, we did discuss how that could be done in a more feasible, affordable way. Downtown came up quite a bit. The diverse population, the thing that makes Ventura special, our level of diversity and what makes the way that we interact as a community. In terms of places that might need love, Johnson Drive corridor, I heard our entry into the city. I think the corridors, Johnson Drive corridor on our east side came up in conversation as a corridor that could provide opportunity, but certainly an issue, an area of our city that can be addressed. We did talk about some concern about the downtown, why it was mentioned as hard for me to be part of it as a former restaurateur there and not also throw my voice into support for the downtown. But I will echo what some others said, was that businesses are struggling there. We're relying on our restaurants and nightclubs for activity, and we need to expand the context of what's happening in the downtown to include people that live there. We have a few projects happening, but that whole livability and mixed use aspect of what could happen in the downtown came up. I think that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Next group is Jen's group.
Hi, thank you. We will have our participant Pamela. She's going to be reporting back, and Derek is going to have the report up on the screen. So thank you. Pamela, are you with us?
Can this form be made bigger? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. There you go.
Okay. So just quickly, okay. Our three main takeaways from the vision statement this has already been said, environmental considerations need to be more at the forefront from the 2005 version of things, and especially in terms of climate change. And transportation alternatives are important, and understanding how that has to be balanced with a certain amount of growth in order to be sustainable. And social connections are really important. And we were thinking of especially the social connection between the town and the harbor, which was pretty well taken, once the freeway went through it, it really separated that, but they're both great areas. So see, themes that are popular: climate change, resilience. We talked a lot about climate change and going big on solar. In terms of creating communities that are vibrant and human-centric, so they would be walkable, bikeable based communities, and green, well-paid businesses. And we actually talked about how one thing that the pandemic has shown us is that, there are a lot of people who going forward will have at-home jobs. And so how can we embrace that and help people have a really good quality of living in a nice place where they're going to stay home all day and they're not going to be on the roads? We like that. And then in terms of our favorite places in Ventura would be Harmon Canyon, the Botanical Garden, the beaches. Places that we think need love are the rivers, the river bottoms, and especially our homeless populations, and the East End businesses, because they're kind of a food desert out there.
Thanks, Pamela. Great job. I'm definitely noticing a lot of similarities between the groups in terms of what you all are thinking about. The next group is group number 8, and that's Jonathan's group.
And Jonathan asked if I would read the comments. This has been a long day, so I'm going to try to do this without stumbling too much. Main takeaways regarding the vision statement: the community needs to evolve. Transportation, bus service, bike lanes, encourage walkability, creative design to enhance public's use, inter-neighborhood connectivity. Ocean views, code for don't build anything over 2 stories. Recommendation from half of the group 8 is to remove ocean views from that statement. Revitalize and reuse, and I was not the driver of that, by the way. Which themes or wishes were most popular, if any? Revitalize and reuse underutilized areas, need to have creative land uses, protect agricultural resources, provide more affordable housing, transportation connectivity throughout the city. Places in the city that were mentioned: the mall, Johnson Drive, blighted properties, repurpose areas with creative land uses. The West Side, we want to support the West Side Community Council, build a town center, possibly where the school district offices are, blight population for residents. There was talk about a substantial amount of oil-related industry over time being allowed to evolve into other uses as the economy may support. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Okay, the second to last group, we have 2 more left, is Alejandra.
Yes, hi, Carl is going to present for us, and I think Monica's going to share our screen.
Thank you, Alejandra and Monica, for the note taking. And yeah, somehow I got thrown into this. So with the main takeaways from the vision statement, first of all, a broader statement is that some felt like we didn't have access to the entire vision. And so therefore we were kind of feeling like we're working on a very abridged version. But in light of that, the comments were that the environment is too broad. We need to be more specific in what we're defining. Bringing more private sector for economic vitality, keep and bring a younger population, which is responding to our demographic changes. The importance of parks and recreation, emphasis of keeping those very important as we develop, and continuation of the discussion of broadband opportunities, particularly in light of infrastructure discussions. With regards to themes or wishes, most popular, if anything, addressing the homeless and low income and adding a more affordable housing, a continuing theme throughout. Adding more bike lanes, improve the safety of bike lanes, not next to cars, looking for more class 1 types of bike lanes instead of the class 2 and 3 that we currently have. And there was a discussion about appealing to large private companies. What can the city do to entice corporations, companies, whatever, that bring better paying jobs, which has been a long-term discussion in this community. With regards to places in the city were mentioned frequently, the downtown, improvements that have gone on downtown and made it more inviting. Midtown, and again, a lot of discussion about what to do with the Pacific View Mall as it morphs from retail, and how do we improve restaurants and businesses in the Midtown. And finally, our parks need more love. For example, our community park still needs completed, but all the parks could have some attention paid to them. So those were kind of the synopsis out of our group. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And then our last group is Katrina.
And Sheena is going to go ahead and speak for our fantastic, fearless, civically engaged, passionate group.
Hey, you guys, thank you. Fun to be last. Thank you. So many great ideas. I was taking notes as I was going, but just an overview. I mean, we started off with Paul, who had been involved in the 2005 vision, and kind of brought to our attention that, you know, there was a lot of great ideas and vision, but it lacked the ability to implement. So that was number one. There was some odds in the vision versus what could actually be done. So we want to create a vision that is in alignment with what can be done. A big emphasis on urgency as far as climate change, economics. A lot has changed since 2005. So climate change, economics, affordable housing is a big deal. We talked a lot about that. We just need the infrastructure to match the group. There's concerns. How do we grow affordable housing when we don't have the water to support it? As far as themes, more bathrooms for people that are living outside. We need more libraries, more community spaces, more creative use of open spaces, definitely more collaboration and communication between the city and the communities that are served. And then there was a mention about having the city really support more local businesses, smaller businesses that somehow they seem to be at odds with one another. Favorite spots, the Ventura River mouth, love it, and also needs work, and also our city beaches. We cherish them, but they need to be taken care of better maybe. The Market Street industrial area over there, I feel like it could be better utilized. There's a lot of place for more business over there. And then mention of the Selby Trail, as far as it's a patchwork of landowners, and it's, you know, there's an impasse between the city and all these private owners, but they love Arroyo Verde, Harmon Canyon, and we just want to cherish our open spaces and continue to expand those. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Thank you to everyone. Such great ideas, such great conversations in all of the groups. Thank you all for participating. I'm just gonna close here for just to tell you all a little bit of some of the next steps that are going on for the project. So I'm gonna, again, share my screen. So this online survey, what we did in the workshop tonight, the vision review, the Magic Genie, and the places, we're gonna keep this, we're gonna put this online and let the public who did not participate in the meeting tonight provide some comments. So make sure that you tell all of your friends and family and neighbors and stores you go into that they should go online to do this. The website, this will be up tomorrow. It's planventura.com, and we're going to get feedback for about 3 more weeks until May 21st. We have a whole series of upcoming meetings that are public meetings on the general plan. As I said, we're going to be meeting quite a bit in the next year. So we're going to boards and commissions, Arts and Culture, Parks and Rec, and then Planning Commission on May 11th and 12th. The General Plan Advisory Committee, or the GPAC, is going to have meetings in June, 2 meetings on housing in June, the Housing Overview, June 15th, and Housing Policy, June 29th. And then we're going to come back to that group in July, on July 20th, to talk about vision and guiding principles based on all of the work that was done tonight, and then all of the feedback that we're going to be getting from the online forums. We're also going to do a series of educational forums so to give people some background information on different topics for the general plan, starting May 18th, this is actually going to supersede the general plan advisory committee meeting, which was going to be this night. So we're going to do a planning 101, just a real informal conversation about how planning works and the different planning documents in the city and what the general plan requirements are to bring everyone up to speed on all of the background on planning. We're going to have a series of other topics, including economic development, a housing overview on June 15th, which will be joint with the GPAC, and then moving on to other topics in the summer and then into the fall. There's additional engagement we're going to do. As I mentioned, we have the online survey similar to what you did tonight. We're going to do a series of community listening sessions because not everyone could participate tonight. We want to go out into the community and talk to some groups, demographic groups who may not have participated. Spanish speaking, we'll do a Spanish speaking focus group. We'll talk to churches, advocacy and service organizations. If you know anyone who you think we should speak with, if you are part of an organization that wants to talk about the vision and the general plan, shoot us a message through the website and we'll do our best to come out to your group. And then we're going to be going out to the community councils in May, June, and July to talk about visioning and to do some more focused ideating in each of the sub areas of the city. With that, I would like to thank all of you for spending your evening with us. I thought the feedback was great. The energy was amazing. And it's so clear how much all of you really love your community. So we are embarking on this process over the next 2 years. There are going to be lots and lots of opportunities to participate. Please get as many people as possible to share in the process, because the more people that share their ideas, the better this plan will go. It's your plan for the future, and everyone really needs to participate. With that, I'd like to say good night to everyone. Thanks to all the volunteer facilitators and for all of you for joining this evening. And we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.